What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. I wanted to do a quick last-minute thoughts for Salt Lake City Regionals coming up this weekend. I will not be attending. $800 plus round-trip flights were not appealing to me. So I'll be watching from home. Good luck to everyone who is attending. So yeah, let's just talk about like the decks I would play, the decks I expect to be there, some predictions, things like that. I think you guys have probably heard a lot from the meta discussions on everybody's channels this week that none of the top players want to play Mew, and I've talked about this in the past. I tell all my students this, the when you get to the being at that like top percentile of players, you don't want to play the best deck anymore. You want to play the deck that beats the best deck and the second best deck. Um, and that is not very obvious right now. I think even Rahul said it in one of the many meta discussions. Like I watched all of them yesterday while doing work. I think he said like, look at X, Y, and Z metagame where the first best deck and the second best deck were easily countered by this, and then that was countered by that. It's like it's not happening that obviously right now because Mew is so far ahead of everything else in its power level and the way that it changes the pacing of the format because of turn 1 Alessa, Meloetta, 210 plus, or just turn 2 boss kill if Mew goes first. So with that being said, I am, also in that same boat where if I was going, my top two choices would not be Mew. And if I couldn't get those choices to where I want them to be, I would just default to Mew and play whatever Mew list I felt would allow me to play as solid as I can in the mirror matches and against the field. So, um, my first deck right now would be Arceus Inteleon because I have the most games with it. I'm comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable outplaying my opponents when they're playing the mirror or other decks. There's really no outplaying Mew. I feel like it's either your Path Marnie sticks or it doesn't at some point, or they whiff the power tablet and your 310 Arceus lives and you get to Charon's Care, and that's great. But I don't think Arceus Inteleon is the best deck. I don't even think it's the best Arceus variant. I think Arceus Bidoof, or Arceus Bibarel, is going to be coming out of the woodwork as the main way to build Arceus decks, and Arceus Inteleon might stay a deck, or it might just fall by the wayside. Because uh yeah, Bibarel allows you to play more early game consistency and more options, whereas Inteleon takes up a lot of slots and it gets you specific things. But a lot of times you're never drawing cards with Arceus Inteleon. That's one of the main issues with it, is that you need the chance to hit like 3 cards, and the Drizzile Inteleon can give you like 1 or 2 cards, and it doesn't even give you the possibility of getting to what you need for game. So my first pick would be Arceus Inteleon because I am comfortable with it and I am confident in my ability to make day 2 with it. But I'm not confident in my ability to have the options in that deck to actually outplay my opponent and beat Muse consistently in day 2. My second choice would be an Arceus Bibarel variant. My lists are very all over the place, which is why you probably haven't seen me publish them or play with them, or even if you're a patron, I hadn't posted Arceus Bibarel lists until today when I'm recording this video, so maybe when you see this video yesterday. But if you're a patron, definitely check out my recent posts. Because these Arceus B-roll lists are still a work in progress for me. And so if I didn't end up getting to a place of comfort by Friday evening, then I would probably play Arceus Inteleon or Mew. I also think most people's Arceus Inteleon lists are not good right now. I still stand by like 58 out of 60 cards of what I played in the Metafy tournament. But that's not to say I think it's the best call or the best deck, because I don't think it is. It's the one I would be most comfortable playing to the tournament. I've also been tinkering with Arceus Flygon, and I am a fan of Jolteon. It is a fragile deck, but Marnie Path and spread 100 a couple times does get games. But yeah, so my first deck would be Arceus Inteleon out of comfort. My second deck would be Arceus Bibarel because I think that has the potential to go the distance if I perfected the list in time. And then Mew VMAX would be my default choice if the other two just weren't feeling good enough for me. And I would be playing very close to Natalie's list. I think my list that I posted on my Patreon is only a couple cards off. But I feel like everybody's been saying that, right? Like, and that just goes to show you that just because somebody won a regional with the deck last week doesn't mean that the top players think it's still the perfect 60 a week later. Things change. So definitely keep that in mind. Like if you're playing with the deck and you feel like a card could be changed, maybe get advice from a couple friends, see what other people are saying about that card or that change. But you might be onto something and the change might be good. Just because it won a regional doesn't mean the list is still perfect. That always goes for every regional performance, every big performance, and then looking on a week, 2 weeks, a month later, the list can definitely change to be optimized for the next event. As far as what decks can make day two, just about flipping anything can make day two, man. Like there's going to be a ton of Mews, but Arceus Inteleon, Arceus Duraludon, I mean, heck, if enough people play Arceus Malamar VMAX, a list that's been getting just a couple people playing it in events, that could make it into day two. If a handful of people play Jolteon, one of them will make it through. Rapid Strike Malamar, Hoopa Moltres, Gengar VMAX, Single Strike, Rapid Strike Urshifu variants, perhaps, but some of those decks as we're getting farther down the line aren't being played much. Ice Rider. But then the decks that I actually think can make it into top 8, it really depends because I know so many people are in that same position where if I can just crack Arceus, I'll play that so I don't have to play stupid Mew VMAX and worry about the mirror matches. Because nobody wants to play the Mew mirror match 5 times and then play against 4 decks that are specifically trying to beat you. Even if Mew VMAX can beat the counters, which it definitely can, you don't want to have to play against a field of people that are either you or preparing for you. It just sucks because there's also no mainstreamed mirror counters for Mew VMAX. I think it's just either play catchers and try to high roll, or just play the consistent list and play solidly and don't miss sequence so you have better odds than your opponent if they're misplaying. So like I don't want to play Mew because of the mirror plus all the counters. Plus, I firmly believe that there are decks that beat Mew a very good amount of the time because I have played with those decks that beat Mew a very good amount of the time. Again, some of these decks are things that my group has not completely cracked yet and completely perfected, but they are out there. There are things that beat Mew. There are even things in the mainstream that beat Mew. Gengar VMAX, just a consistent Gengar VMAX that's just worrying about the Mew matchup, beats Mew a good amount of the time. Can Mew still beat it? Absolutely. And probably other dark decks. I don't even know about Eternatus. I don't test Eternatus, guys. Maybe it beats Mew. I don't know. Eternatus never feels good for me to play. But the point is, there are things that beat Mew. The issue is beating Mew plus something else. Like, if you go into the tournament only beating Mew, maybe you can make it in. But if, 3 people play a deck that only beats Mew, the odds of them hitting non-Mew decks are pretty good. Now, maybe if 50 people were playing a deck that only beats Mew, a couple of those people are probably going to hit 6+ Mews in day one. Somebody's going to get the good luck. But the issue right now with these counter decks that do exist is that they don't, even if they can beat Mew, which some of these decks people think beat Mew and they don't, but there are ones that do. The problem is also beating other things. So in top 8, I expect at least 4 Mew. I expect 2 Arceus variants, and then fill in the other ones. If all the top players didn't, if a lot of top players felt they couldn't crack Arceus, and they don't want to bring one of the mediocre Arceus variants that are already out there, they'll probably default to Mew, maybe make a 5th Mew in there, and then throw in a single prize deck, probably not Hoopa Moltres, probably Rapid Strike Malamar if I have to pick a single prize deck. Unless somebody does something to Hoopa Moltres that makes it better versus Mew than it already is. Because I feel like Mew versus Hoopa Molt is one of the most formulaic matchups right now in Standard. I have a turn-by-turn, formula against that deck, whether I'm going first or second as Mew. So I just feel like Hoopa Moltres has to have something new going on if it's going to beat Mew. Maybe it just high rolls with Wheezing, I don't know. But I'd expect 50% of top 8 to be Mew VMAX, unless like a circle of top players figure out how to beat it and other things, and then they spread that to everybody else, and there's a good chunk of people playing like the perfect counter deck. Um, so yeah, I expect 50% plus Mew in top 2 to 3 Arceus, and then probably 1 to 2 like single prizer or Gengar VMAX or something like that. Um, at this point, if I had to put money on it, I'd say Mew VMAX will win the event, but I know there are decks that could win the event over Mew. It just depends how many people play those, if they crack the decks, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, I expect Mew VMAX to be at least 20% of the meta, because in past formats, like a good one is 2018 NAIC, Zoroark variants, Buzzrock, and Malamar were at the top of the meta, and combined those took up like 50%, right? They were like 10 to 15% each. They took up a big chunk, and then everything else was other. Um, it's not like that right now. Mew VMAX is taking up the big chunk all on its own, kind of like ADPZ did in online events. Um, so I do expect like on average, 3 out of 9 of your rounds will be against Mew VMAX at least. Um, Probably another 3 versus Arceus, and then those last 3, a couple of those could be Mew as well. Maybe a single strike deck, whether it's Urshi or Gengar. A single prize deck, whether it's Rapid Strike Mally or Hoopa Molt, and then maybe one of the other like 5%er decks, like Ice Rider, like Suicune variants. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. So my thoughts on the meta share, my thoughts on top 8. Mew definitely can win the event, and I think it's likely to win the event, but we'll have to see if people brewed hard enough and tested hard enough and found the right counts of everything to make it work for this event to beat Mew. If not, if, you know, some card combinations stay under wraps, if some partners aren't combined, things like that, then I'll have a lot of work to do preparing for Indiana regionals. So good luck if you are competing. Like I said, if you are a sub on Patreon, be sure to check that out, because I talked about a lot of things yesterday and laid out matchups for the top 3 decks. And today I posted a new list on there as well. But thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.